in 1975 as the Ipswich Film Theatre, and it has a long storied history of championing independent film, independent cinema, foreign cinema, and repertory programming, so a lot of old films. It existed as the Ipswich Film Theatre until about 2003, 2004, when it was taken over by a private company, run for a few years, and then reopened in 2010 again as the Ipswich Film Theatre, with the same remit that it started with. And here we are, 10 years after the reopening, rebuilding an audience after 18 months of closure due to a global pandemic. So there we are, little potted history.
Yeah. So you mentioned the pandemic. How have things been since reopening?
They've been a challenge, which I think they have for every cinema and many other businesses. We've obviously, we have a core audience anyway who is very committed. What our job is and has been since reopening is to generate new audiences. What's important to every cinema is to feed a constant growth in audience, because you're always going to get fall off in audiences. And after being closed for 18 months, that's twice as hard, 10 times as hard, 100 times as hard. So in a sense, it's caused us to start from scratch all over again. But I think what we've seen is that the audience is there, both in returning audiences and new audiences. And if we keep, our minds focused on the growth, then we will see that come back. I think it's it's something that every cinema has faced, but especially in the latter part of this year, we've seen extraordinary ticket sales for quite a large number of films. So everybody's still there waiting to come back.
Yeah. I suppose time to ask now about the rebranding of the cinema.
Yeah, the rebranding. So this was something that had been long considered by the board, primarily as a means of attracting that new audience, broadening our acceptance, I suppose you'd say. Specifically in the use of the word cinema in the name. It's film theatre has a nice quaint feel about it, but almost everybody in the UK will know cinema as cinema. So it was very important for us that was something that we would use in the title. In addition to that, King Street has some history behind it. It's called King Street because, depending on who you read or who you listen to, the king, and I forget which king, feasted on this site prior to the marriage of his daughter, and we just felt that this confluence of history and myth surrounding the street itself was something that is essential to cinema as well. Cinema is that same combination: history and myth, truth, fact, lies, all of these things rolled into one. And not only that, it sets us in a place geographically as well. So when you're talking about the King Street Cinema, if you don't know where King Street is, you will learn very quickly where King Street is, and then you will realise there's a cinema on King Street. So it has a nice ring to it, which is the most important part of naming something, and it tells everybody what it is. It's a cinema on King Street.
Great, yeah. So it wasn't just a matter of, right, we're on King Street, we'll call it that. There's reasons behind it.
There definitely are.
Excellent. Just quickly getting back to the Suffolk theme. Are you all local people? Have you been here most of your lives, or trying to think what brought you here?
Me, not originally, but at this point, most of my life, yes.
Yeah, I've known you over 20 years.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah, I moved to Suffolk when I was 13. So.
Okay, so a few years.
A few years now, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I was born at Shotley, funny enough, because my dad was in the Navy. So yeah, I lived in and out of Suffolk a long while, and lived in London for a while, but mainly in Suffolk, and lived in Ipswich about 25 years, I think, now.
Okay, so you two probably about the same, more or less the same time.
Yeah. I moved to Ipswich specifically in 2001.
Yeah.
So I was living in Woodbridge before that.
So not far at all.
Yeah, I lived in Woodbridge as well.
And Dad?
I was born in Ipswich. I haven't lived in Ipswich all my life. But yeah, I was born and schooled in Ipswich.
And you, just quick thoughts on the area. I mean, you've obviously all been here a while, so there must be things about it you like.
Yeah, well, certainly. I like Ipswich a lot. You know, that's why I'm still here. After 20 years. Yeah. Big fan of the town.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on the actual sort of film scene here? I mean, there's the sort of independent films what are made. You must have shown some local films. The big one recently, which isn't that small, is everyone was going on about the Dig last year, which may have had a bit more interest. Did you show that as well?
We didn't show that one actually.
No.
Because
that was one. It was made for Netflix.
I was going to say it was on Netflix, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I didn't know if anyone did show it as well. They might not have done.
I'm sure someone did, but I don't know if anyone in Suffolk or Ipswich did.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it was on some sorts.
The Riverside showed it in Woodbridge. Right. I think we were still closed at the time it was released.
Okay, so we were locked down when I watched it. Yeah. But yeah, things like that sort of bring interest to the area. And you do show stuff made from the uni and stuff, haven't you, or things through the uni? We
do. We show. We have a regular monthly student film club called the Big Wednesday, and we show current films. So they'll get a feature presentation, and they also get the opportunity to show their own short films that they've made at the uni or outside the uni, but sort of supported by the uni. And that's terrific. We follow those up with Q&As with the actual student filmmakers as well, and that's it's a really good thing for a local cinema to embed itself with local filmmakers and the educational facilities, because that's not only are they your audience, but they're your content providers as well. Yeah. So your future content providers, to use that horrible term, content. But filmmakers who a small independent cinema should be supporting. Yeah. So it's a real privilege to do that.
I mean, I studied media at Suffolk College, and there was no way we'd have shown anything on big screen of what we made. But this was the cinema that I think once a term they'd treat us to see a film. Right. And we saw things Rushmore and Virgin Suicide. So I'm showing my age there a bit. But did you get good feedback from the youngsters who come along? Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I mean, they're we haven't had the space to do one in December, but it will be coming back in February. But they absolutely love it. They love the opportunity to get up on stage and talk to an audience about their filmmaking processes as well. You know, so like I said, it's a privilege to really do that.
Yeah. So that's good to hear, because I sort of assume all teenagers are only into sort of Fast and Furious and stuff like that, but clearly not. So that's good.
Yeah.
But you show a lot of older films here as well. Recently had an Arrow season.
Yes, that's right. The Friday Fright Night with Arrow. Yeah.
And so you're showing more newer films as well. Like the Bond film's been on, just recently last night in Soho. You looking to sort of mix it up more, or?
We are, yeah. I think, and we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
You know how all cinema has the right to sit together. You know, whether it's a film that costs $200 million or a film that costs 500 grand.
Yeah.
It's you know, it all has merit in some way, and you know, I mean, we're not going down the road of getting every new release in. We still, it's important to us that, you know, we hold true to our initial programming tenets. But you know, a popular film can be just as artistically fulfilling as a film that only 50 people come and see. And we, you know, it's something that we need to embrace, I think, as independent cinemas as well. Yeah, so, I mean, the January is a big month for us in terms of new films. Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza.
Oh yeah.
And you know, so that's one of those films that can cross boundaries.
Yeah.
It's marketed heavily, but it's at its core it's completely independent, and it's a perfect sort of film for this kind of environment.
So I mentioned I saw Rushmore here.
Yeah.
The latest Wes Anderson film you showed, which The French Dispatch.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of film. Obviously, there's 3 cinemas in Ipswich now. When looking to see, if I wanted to see that film, this is the cinema I'd look to first. I sort of attach that to a more independent cinema. Do you find these films go down as well as, say, the big budget films?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's probably the